Let's look at how we would set up the main FK controls. So for things like rotating the head, the neck, the chest, and even when we rotate the arms as part of the IKFK arm setup. Okay. Originally, and also the clavicles as well. Now, originally, I used to set up a control with a group, and so every FK control is placed and then constrained in. I'll show you how to set that up, but it becomes very, very time consuming to set up every control with a group, especially when you get down to the fingers. Okay. Now, what I've recently started using is a parent system which bypasses any need for constraints, and therefore often you find rigs that have a lot of constraints start slowing down quite a lot. So if you've got constraints all around the fingers and the body, and then you've got two rigs that you're importing in the scene, it starts slowing down massively. So I use this parent shape node system, which we'll also cover as well. So first of all, let's look at the original way of the controls in the group. Very, very similar to how we did the cog. Okay. So first of all, let's set a control. So I'm going to use the KK controls, and let's have this guy here. I'm going to have a group node to keep the controls at 0. All right. So let's have that there. So as you can see, I've got the curve. Let's call this rig underscore, let's call this clavicle, clav, left underscore control, and copy that and paste it to the group, but give it the extra suffix underscore grp. Okay. Alright, so now you move the group to the clav control, okay, and then using the control verts, let's select all, let's move it off, and J-snap it so that it rotates in increments, and let's snap it that way. Okay. All right. So by doing it, let's go back to object mode. Yeah. Just click off it. So you can see by just manipulating the control verts, it's kept the pivot point the same. Okay. So what I have is the group has been positioned where the clav is, which that's got the values, and therefore the control is all zeroed out, and then I've just manipulated the curves to give it to offset it from the geometry. If you want to check, there you go, it just sits off. Okay. Let's just maybe move it out to the side. Okay, so this is the sort of traditional setup using groups and constraints, and we constrain the clav joint to the control. Okay, so again, when we use constraints, it's always the driver first. So let's select the control, select the joint, constrain. We can do a parent or orient. Because FK is always orientation, then orient is fine. Maintain offset, and there we go. Okay. So what we have now is, because the joint is constrained to the control, when I move the control, it rotates the joint. Okay. However, if I rotate the hips, the clavicle is not influenced as part of that. So what you have to do is constrain the group to the joint above it, okay, which is the chest. Okay. Select the chest, then which is the driver, then the group, and constrain parent. Add. Okay. So the chest drives the group of the clavicle, and then the clavicle control drives the clavicle joint. Okay. So the reason the chest drives the clavicle group is that whenever I move the chest, then naturally the clavicle goes with it. Okay. So as you can see, it's an ideal setup. It's fine, but there's a lot of constraints getting involved in there. The joint is constrained to the control. The group is constrained to the joint above it. So that's two constraints. So as you start to build up your controls, it starts to get very, very time consuming, and there's a lot of controls and constraints in there. Okay, I'm going to delete that. That's just show you one way. Okay. Now the other way is literally those controls are driving the orientation of the joints. And the more efficient way that I find is it's almost tricking the joint to have a little handle. So we're actually animating the joint itself, but rather than have them visible and trying to get in there, let me just hide this skeleton. So, you know, rather than trying to bypass through and rotate the joint, we're giving the joint a little handle. Okay, and this technique is a great technique. I use it all the time now in my rigs, so we'll go through it. Okay. Okay, so first of all, let's create the control. Let me just turn on the grid. Okay. I'm going to go back to KK controls. I'm going to select the one that I also use for the clavicle, but I don't want to group. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off. Whoops, I created it with the group. Alright, no big deal. Let me close that down. Let me unparent it from the group and delete the group. So I just want the curve itself. And let's call this rig underscore clav left control. Okay. So this involves a little bit of mel, and ultimately it's using the parent command. But the reason you need mel is that you need to create some extra flags in there. Okay. And the sort of mel script that you need, I just open Notepad, is you are going to use the parent command space, and you're going to parent the shape node. So you need the flag hyphen or dash s and its relative, so dash r. Okay. Then what we're going to do is type in the the control shape, whatever that is, and then we're going to type in the name of the joint. So this is the control shape name. Okay, so that is literally the command that you need. Okay, it's relatively straightforward, and I'll show you what it does. So I'm just going to select that, go back to Maya. Let's open up a script editor and make sure you're in the mail. Okay, paste that in there. So I've got parent -s -r, the name of the control shape, and then the name of the joint. Right, so we need the name of the joint, and that's called rig clavicle left, J&T. So let's just replace that. And then the name of the shape, the control shape. And you'll find the name of the control shape by clicking on the object. You've got the name of the object here, but the shape is here. And often you find, if it's been named properly, that it's exactly the same as the control, but it's got shape at the end of it. So copy that and paste that there. Okay. Okay. So if I select it and then press Enter, which is on your numlock keyboard, so that you can keep the command available there. So just press Enter, and as you can see, the control jumps up to the center of the joint. If I select the joint, I've got rig clavicle left joint is there, but the shape is now that control shape. So I've sort of tricked the joint into thinking it's got a little handle. Okay, and if I rotate, select by that handle and rotate, it's actually rotating the joint. Right? Don't forget the joints have translation on, but because this is always FK and I'm only ever dealing with rotations, then they will always be zeroed out, and that's why it's important to have your joints zeroed out. Okay. So now that it's in position, go to Control Verts, select all, and then move that up and out, and use the J-snap to rotate it in position. Okay. So as you can see, when I select the curve, it's actually selecting the joint. Right? I've not got any. So once you've done that, it leaves behind the actual sort of group node of what that control was, so you can delete it. And ultimately, because it is actually the joint, it sits nicely within your joint hierarchy, exactly as it was before. So all we've done with that parent command is give the joint a little handle to work with. Okay, and it just becomes nice and easy. Right? So when we eventually have the character, you will hide the joints, but you still get the controls to work with, exactly as if you would have done with the constraints method. But I just find that this is a much easier process to do. Okay. So again, just as a recap, you type in parent, that's the command. These are called flags. So you're saying I'm parenting the shape node and I'm keeping it relative to its parent. What is the shape node? So that's the control shape. And what is the parent? In this case, it's the joint. Okay, and literally you just replace those two, and it just becomes very, very easy to set up. Okay. And there we have it. So I prefer this way. There's no constraints. It's a really easy thing to know how to do. In the next video, I'll show you. I actually wrote a tool, and if you do want, I'm quite happy to hand out that tool. If you want to, just email me, dean@deanfinnegan.com. Email me that, and I'll happily hand over the mail script, because it's very easy to use, and it just makes that whole process a lot easier. And for those guys that I'm actually teaching, I'll hand the tool out to you guys anyway.